Some tech stocks are down 30 to 50%, and the bond market certainly isn't happy with the Fed with the big spike we've seen in yields. And the million-dollar question is the bull market over? The short answer, in our opinion, is absolutely not. We called for this summer chop. People that listened to us were prepared for this summer sell-off. And now Walsh is letting the bond market do the heavy lifting, but don't sleep on a September surprise. In June, we rotated into some defensive areas as we televised to people. And now we are looking to do the opposite, to take advantage of the carnage and big sell-off we've seen in technology to set ourselves up for a strong finish in 2026. Welcome back to the Common Sense Bull. This is episode number 5. Last episode, we had the privilege of having Dan Ives as a special guest. This week, it's just going to be me because I want to focus on this recent carnage we've had, touch on markets, and how we plan to play this to try to help educate all of our clients in regards to what we're thinking and why we're making the moves that we are making. Please continue to send all the feedback and questions that you continue to send to us. Let us know any specific topics you want us to look at or even special guests you would like to see in the future. Today's episode, we're going to touch on 4 main topics. First is going to be the Fed. Are we going to get a surprise in September? Or maybe we get that surprise during the Jackson Hole meeting in August. We'll give you our outlook in regards to the Fed. Second is going to be the markets. Is this rotational trade going to continue? Are we going to continue to see a broadening out? And are semis going to continue to take the beating that they have in the month of July? Then third thing is going to be our portfolio. What changes have we recently made? And just as importantly, what changes are we looking to make over the coming weeks? And lastly, our bottom line outlook for 2026. How we're going to finish through the summer, and more importantly, how we finish the year. Let's kick things off with the Fed. The Federal Reserve did exactly what we thought they would do in their last meeting by not doing anything. We still consider the Fed as the number one risk to the market, and it's our biggest concern heading into August and September. The bond market unfortunately agrees with us. We saw one of the biggest moves in the bond market in 20 years. The 30-year bond rise to a level we hadn't seen since 2007, and the 10-year looks like it's on track to potentially hit that 5% number. These things, unfortunately, are bearish short-term for the market. Anytime you see these big spikes in rates, liquidity is coming out of the system. And we are concerned that the Fed is going to make a policy mistake by doing some type of monetary tightening in September. The reason why we continue to have this thesis is Kevin Walsh continues to harp on this 2% inflation number. And we continue to pound the table that to get to 2% inflation in a short period of time, you have to do damage to the economy to get to that. We do not think the damage that would be done by getting down to 2% is worth making this type of policy mistake. But at the end of the day, they continue to stick to their guns on 2%. The bond market is sniffing out that we are going to be potentially seeing tighter monetary policy. And this is why we think we're going to see more downside in August and September because the bond market is signaling that they're going to be tightening monetary policy. The question is, are they going to raise rates or do something around the balance sheet? In our opinion, it really doesn't matter which avenue they choose. They're both going to have the same impact on markets. And this is why you have to be methodical with what you're buying, when you're buying, and position sizing. We do think ultimately, at the end of the day, that he's going to be a lot more dovish than why people think. And the reason why we say that is he continues to refer to the task force. We believe when the task force is done doing their work, that by the end of this year, they're going to do some type of recalculation on how they calculate inflation. So although they may tighten in August and September to save face to the consumers that continue to ask questions on how they're going to get inflation tamed, we believe by the end of this year, he's going to ultimately be a dove and we'll potentially getting rate cuts next year. He continues to also talk about doing things differently at the Fed. This is why he's not giving forward guidance. He wants the markets to react to real-time data. this real-time data could increase volatility. But that's what he wants. He wants the markets to take over. And it's still yet to be determined on whether that's going to be a positive or negative catalyst for the market or volatility, which is one of the most important factors we look at from a market perspective and volatility perspective. But at the end of the day, we believe they're going to tighten and bring markets down, and then they're going to stabilize things by not doing any rate cuts or rate hikes the rest of this year, not doing any more tightening. And by next year, we believe they'll be loosening monetary policy once again as he tries to modernize how they view data and potentially tries to do a forward-looking data computation versus rear-view mirror, which is what they have traditionally been. So there's still a lot of unknowns, and this is why the market continues to not be able to read Kevin Walsh and his team. And anytime the market sees unknowns or uncertainty, it generally sells off first and then answers questions later. So continue to be buckled up for volatility, but also be opportunistic as we get some great opportunities potentially in the August-September timeframe. Now when we go ahead and pivot to markets, let's take a look at markets from a broad perspective. And one of the main reasons why we continue to say that we do not believe that because of this big sell-off we've seen in tech, that we're going to have a bear market start this year. When we look at the earnings cycle, 46% of the S&P 500 have already reported, with 88% of companies beating earnings expectations and approximately 76% of companies beating on top-line growth. These are fantastic numbers. The other thing that keeps us optimistic is when you look at the equal weight S&P in areas like healthcare. They've recently hit new all-time highs. To us, looking at RSP, which is the equal weight S&P, hitting all-time highs is telling us that there's a lot more things going well versus going poorly. That's also telling us that from a rate of change perspective, earnings growth is continuing to accelerate for most companies. Investors may not feel that way if they're overweight tech. Tech has been the one taking the big hit. But when we take a look at technology, technology has been going through rolling crashes that started last July. Last July, we talked about selling some software names. And software took a beating and had struggled for nearly 12 months. And now software is starting to accelerate and outperform on a relative basis the semiconductor names that were the most recent ones that were on fire. But if you take a look back, you had software started their bear market last summer. The Mag 7 started to struggle. Cybersecurity names started to struggle. And now you have the semiconductors and memory names struggle. This type of rolling crash or rolling correction we think is healthy and necessary to shake the weak hands out, but also deleverage the system. One of the reasons for such a violent sell-off in technology was the overweight positioning that Wall Street had, plus the amount of leverage that was in the system. When you have that much leverage, you heard the saying escalator up and elevator down. That's why you see these violent moves to the downside. That's why we had the news of the hedge fund last week that blew up. That's what happens when you're positioned incorrectly with leverage. So the tech trade, in our opinion, is not dead. We still favor software and cybersecurity names over semiconductors, and that is in our positioning. But we still think that there's going to be great opportunities in that space. But whether you look at financials, you look at industrials, you look at software, and you look at other areas in the market like healthcare, these earnings reports are continuing to support our thesis that A, we are not going into a recession this year. We're going to continue to see the economy accelerate. It's not going to be a straight line up, but that should give investors confidence that fundamentally things are pretty strong right now. We just got to get through this uncertain time period of the Fed and the geopolitical issues. And we believe by the time we get through September Fed meeting, it'll be crystal clear. The bad news will be in the rearview mirror, and the markets will start to focus on the year-end acceleration that we're going to see. And so playing defense right now is critical for two reasons. Number one is to keep your volatility low, but also to be able to have something in your portfolio that has held up well relative to other areas that are down, so you can start rotating from defense to offense if you have the right risk tolerance. But if you came into this summer chop and you did not listen to our strategic positioning and you are overweight tech and you took a 20 to 25% hit, that's a much harder position to get out of because now you're selling something that's down big to getting into something that's down big versus selling something that's held up well and to have that arbitrage opportunity to buy something much lower. So fundamentally, we're still very bullish on the markets because the data is telling us that earnings acceleration from a broad market perspective should continue through 2026. And in the tech space, you have to be very selective with sector positioning, position sizing, and if you're buying individual names, they're not all treated equally. You have to make sure you're with companies that are going to show an acceleration from a rate of change standpoint on revenue and earnings growth, or they're going to get punished post-earnings like you have been seeing firsthand. Lastly, on technology, which is why it has really struggled here recently, is there's this fear of future financing. There's over $1 trillion of potential CapEx spending that is expected to hit the market in 2027. And now some of the bonds are getting priced higher with some of these individual names. The bond market speaks loudly and stock market listens to the bond market. And right now it's telling us that there are some concerns on being able to meet those CapEx numbers from a financing perspective. Now make no mistake, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. If next year there are financing issues or the CapEx numbers come down, that will be extremely bearish for the technology sector, and that will probably bleed into the broader market on a much deeper level. So that is one of the top things we are watching on technology is this CapEx cycle. Are we going to start decelerating or continue to accelerate on that? And again, nothing negative has happened in our opinion from a financing perspective yet, but because the market is seeing some uncertainty, it sells off aggressively. And that's just the market we're in today, which is why we believe you have to continue to be nimble, making moves with a percentage of your portfolio so that way you don't take 20 and 30% hits in a month like many investors unfortunately have due to their positioning. So it's going to be a very bumpy ride in tech. It's still going to be bumpy for the broad market as we get through September, but we think it's going to be off to the races once we get through that time period for the reasons and data that I have just listed to you. Now, in regards to our portfolio, we have done the best that we can to educate our clients and our viewers on what we're doing and why we're doing it. At the end of May and going into June, we started to sell some of our S&P 500 exposure because of its weighting to the NASDAQ and the Mag 7 names, I should say, due to their weighting. We started selling some semiconductors by selling some of the ETFs that we have because we wanted to be underweight technology. We know in a downdraft you're still going to lose money if you're fully invested. We don't walk on water. So yes, our portfolios, of course, have gone down as well too. However, thanks to our positioning and our weighting, those defensive positions have generated some nice alpha over the last 6 weeks since we've started making those changes. And now we are slowly going to start rotating out of those defensive positions and go into some more offensive positions for those that have the right risk tolerance. When you have company stock that are down 30, 50, 60%, and their earnings growth looks really strong for year end and going in the first quarter of 2027, to us, that is a risk reward that we will be willing to take. Now, you have to be able to have the stomach to deal with the volatility. For example, some of the purchases we made in July, they're in the red. But that's why our position sizing was critical. We started with a minimum position, knowing that we're going to keep grossing that position up to get to our max position. When you want to buy something, you don't go all in at first unless there's some type of real strong conviction or a technical analysis that's telling you the bottom is in. We don't think the bottom's in, but we're not too arrogant to think we know when the exact bottom will be. So this is why you scale into these positions. And we're going to continue to gross them up. So as silly as this may sound, volatility is going to be our friend in August and September because we have dry powder with the cash/money market that we have raised. We did another raise last week, and now we've got defensive positions that we can sell to rotate into tech. We have cash that we can rotate into technology and other areas that we want to gross up positions. So we're going to be going from a defensive portfolio to slowly, by the time we get to September, October time period, we'll be right back to where we were in January, which is an offensive playbook with the understanding that if the data changes, we will change with it. But right now, our data is telling us that once we get through this rough patch, the positions that we are adding to right now should pay dividends for investors and our clients around the country. So we need to continue to keep our eye on the bond market. We need to continue to keep our eye on currency. And those are going to be the things that drive the bus, along with volatility of each asset class, to tell us when we think the bottom is in. And I can assure you, when we think the bottom is in, we will yell loud and clear to our clients and to our viewers that we think it's smooth sailing from that data point on. Obviously, again, knowing that there's no guarantees when you're in the capital markets, but you have to base everything based on probabilities. And right now, the probability of a sell-off continuing in the short term, in our opinion, is high. But the probability of the market finishing back to new highs by December 31st, we also believe is high. It's just this air pocket right now that investors hopefully listen to us, sidestep the big part of the blow, and now are able to get on the offensive side of things to take advantage of the gift that we think the market is giving us. So I hope these strategies on how we're positioning, what we're doing, are helping you and your family make informed decisions. Most importantly, helping you protect from high volatility to the downside, to protect the hard-earned assets that you and your family have worked so hard to accumulate. Because at the end of the day, it's simple math. If you don't take big drawdowns, your upside, when it comes back, does not need to be nearly as high to outpace most diversified portfolios. So it's going to be a bumpy ride, but we think fundamentally we are still bullish on our outlook for 2026. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. For more information, feel free to go out to our website and contact our team. We'll get back in touch with you within 24 hours. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next episode of the Common Sense Bull.